they begin to ignore human rights. And the only way to recognize human rights is to recognize them as divine rights. It's the only way to defend human rights is to recognize them as divine rights. He says the problem with the modern world is that we suffer from increasing specialization. It's something I'll talk about in a minute with education, but we are focused more and more on less and less. You know, the specialist is someone who knows more and more about less and less until finally he knows everything about nothing, right? And because of the increasing specialization, we have very few well-rounded people who have a big general knowledge of things. And as a result, everything is further separated from everything else. Traditionally, in Western civilization, there was one person who held things together, who was the generalist. And that person was the mother. The mother was the person who was able to be all things to all people in a house. And the husband and father would tend to become a specialist as he developed a craft or a trade. And the mother was the one who really kept the family together as teacher, as nourisher, as artist, as religious inspiration. And so people had a fuller view of life and a less specialized, less narrow view of life. That was his argument. And that's why, you know, the woman had the most important role in society, Chesterton argues. His argument against feminism is that it's against the things that are feminine. When women are emphasizing equal rights, he says that's a step down for them. That men have played a certain role as provider and as the narrow specialist. And by women imitating men, it just makes them narrower. And he said, you know, generally women have always been able to do most of the things that men have done, but there's always been one thing that men cannot do that only women can do, and that's be a mother. And feminism has reduced the role of the mother in society. That's his argument. That's his argument. But you have to wait until I'm done to hear the whole argument before the catcalls. Catcalls have to wait. That would be the gentlemanly thing to do. Okay? I know, it was a joke. Okay. Now, his argument is that the problem with the sexes today is that each sex is trying to be both sexes at once. And that they do have distinct roles which make for a stronger society if those roles are honored and played out. He argues that women are naturally more dignified than men, that women are naturally more practical than men, that women are broad, whereas men are narrow. And his argument of why women have traditionally stayed in the home is because they give that broadness to children. And also that the home is the broadest place on earth, and it's the outside world that's narrow. And the problem with modern education is that it's not preparing people for the home, it's preparing them for the outside world, which is the narrower place. Chesterton says the inside of a house is larger than the outside of the house. The inside of the house is where life's drama is played out. That's where all of the major important things happen, are inside the home. And that's why if you take the mother out of the home, you destroy the family. Now, Chesterton also argues that ideally, the best kind of society the man should also be in the home. The man should also not work outside the home. Under his social ideas of distributism, the ideal is family-owned businesses where families work together. Ideally, the father should not be away from the home too much. And so with a family-owned business, the father is more present. Now, remember Hudge and Gudge? Well, they're together on this conspiracy against the family. Because Hudge claims to be freeing the woman from the home, and Gudge is happy to have her out of the home because Gudge sees the woman as a source of cheap labor. And so big government is happy to have women working as wage slaves. Chesterton says in What's Wrong with the World, most feminists would probably agree with me that womanhood is under a shameful tyranny in the shops and the mills. I want to destroy the tyranny. They want to destroy the womanhood. That's the only difference. Chesterton argues that the feminists had never realized what unwitting players they've been in the scheme of Hudge and Gudge. As he once said, 10,000 women marched through the streets saying, "We will not be dictated to," and they went off and became stenographers. But that's the point. But you have to save the questions till the end. That's the point. And the other thing that destroyed the family, Chesterton's argument, is public education. The dignity and the responsibility and the authority of the family, Chesterton says, has been usurped by the state, especially in the form of compulsory state education. He says one of the curious silent collapses of the modern intellect occurred when people began to talk about education without talking about what education, about what was actually being taught. Education is supposed to only mean truth in the state of transmission, passing the truth from one generation to the next. But if we don't agree on the truth, how can we teach it to our children? How can we give the state the responsibility to teach it to our children if we don't agree on the truth? And if there is one common fact